What if the electricity powering your phone right now was stolen from you? Not stolen by a corporation, not stolen by a government. Stolen from a civilization so advanced, so impossibly powerful that the people who erased them had to rewrite history itself to cover their tracks. I am talking about the Tartarians. And what they built was not just architecture. It was a global power grid, running on free energy, broadcasting wireless electricity to every corner of the Earth. Thousands of years before Nikola Tesla ever touched a copper coil, tonight we go inside the ruins they left behind. We decode the towers, the domes, the spires that historians keep calling decorative. They were not decorative, they were antennas. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you will never look at an old building the same way again. Let us start with what they do not teach in school. Open any encyclopedia printed before 1900, and I mean any, and you will find it, a massive empire called Tartaria, or Grand Tartary, stretching across what we now call Russia, Central Asia, parts of China, and according to some historical maps, even reaching into North America. The 1771 Encyclopaedia Britannica dedicates an entire entry to it. They describe it as the largest empire on Earth. Then nothing. By the early 20th century, Tartaria has been surgically removed from the textbooks. The empire disappears, the people disappear, and suddenly historians tell us that the incredible stone buildings scattered across the globe were built by people with no machines, no power tools, and no engineering knowledge. Does that make sense to you? Because here is what does not make sense. Look at the old photographs from the 1893 Chicago World's Fair, the one they called the White City. Massive neoclassical buildings, enormous, perfect, built in under 2 years. With shovels and horse carts. In the 1890s. That is the official story. And stay with me here, these buildings were already there, already standing, and the World's Fair was simply held inside them, a rebranding of a civilization that had already been wiped out. Because here is the thing about Tartarian architecture. It is everywhere, St. Petersburg, Chicago, Buenos Aires, Melbourne, the same ornate domes, the same spires, the same impossible proportions, on every continent, all supposedly built independently, all at the same historical moment. That is not a coincidence. That is a network. Now here is where it gets electric, literally. You have heard of Nikola Tesla, the man who gave us alternating current. The man who in 1901 began construction of the Wardenclyffe Tower, a massive structure on Long Island designed to do something extraordinary. Transmit electricity wirelessly, for free, to the entire planet. JP Morgan shut it down, pulled the funding, had the tower demolished. The official reason, it was not financially viable. You cannot meter free energy, you cannot charge people for something that comes from the Earth itself. But here is the question nobody asks. How did Tesla know it would work? Tesla himself said it. He said he was not inventing. He was remembering. He said his ideas came to him whole, fully formed, as if being transmitted to him from somewhere else. What if that somewhere else was the past? What if Tesla had access, through old texts, through Masonic libraries, through sources we will never see, to the original Tartarian technical documents? Because when you look at what Tesla was building at Wardenclyffe, and then you look at what the Tartarians left behind, the resemblance is not coincidental. It is structural. Let me show you what I mean. The Wardenclyffe Tower had 3 essential components: a tall central spire, a domed copper cap at the top, and a deep underground shaft connecting to the Earth's water table, what Tesla called grounding to the telluric currents. Telluric currents, electricity that flows naturally through the ground, through water, through the conductive layers of the Earth itself. Tesla was not generating electricity. He was harvesting it. Now look at a Gothic cathedral, anyone, not a dame, Cologne Cathedral, the Sagrada Familia. What do you see? A tall central spire, a domed or vaulted copper-lined ceiling, and the building is always built over an underground water source. Medieval builders called it sacred geometry. They said the location was chosen because it was spiritually powerful. What if spiritually powerful was their way of saying electromagnetically active? What if every cathedral in Europe was a Tartarian power station? I want you to look very carefully at something most people walk right past. The finials. Every Tartarian building has them. Those pointed metal ornaments at the tops of spires, at the peaks of domes, along the ridgelines of rooftops. Historians call them decorative. An electrical engineer would call them discharge points. In any high-voltage system, you need a way to collect ambient atmospheric charge. The Earth's atmosphere carries a natural voltage differential, positive charge above, negative charge below, approximately 100 volts per meter of altitude. That means at the top of a 100-meter spire, you are looking at a natural potential of 10,000 volts relative to ground. That is not nothing. Now look at the materials. Tartarian buildings are famous for their copper cladding, their bronze statuary, their gold leaf domes. These are not luxury choices. Copper and gold are among the best electrical conductors on Earth. And those famous stained glass windows. The colored glass in medieval and Tartarian architecture contains metal oxides. Iron, cobalt, manganese, copper. Different metal oxides resonate at different electromagnetic frequencies. The patterns are not random, they are tuned. Like circuits. Like filters. Now let us go deeper, literally. The builders of these structures had an obsession with wells. Every major Tartarian-era building sits over an aquifer, a spring, or an underground river. They would dig wells or shafts directly beneath the central dome. Tesla knew exactly what this was for. Water is a conductor. Underground water carries dissolved minerals, making it a natural electrolyte. By grounding a tall conductive spire into an underground aquifer, you create a complete circuit. Atmospheric charge collected at the top, conducted down through the structure, discharged into the Earth's natural electrical system. That is not a church. That is a generator. And here is the part that should make your jaw drop. A Russian researcher named Konstantin Mail has spent the last 3 decades demonstrating that Tesla's scalar wave theory actually works. That longitudinal electromagnetic waves, the kind Tesla called non-Hertzian, can transmit energy through the Earth itself, without wires, without loss over distance. These waves do not travel through the air. They travel through the ground. Which means the Tartarian grid was not an aerial system. It was a planetary system. Every building connected to every other building, every spire singing to every other spire, a global web of wireless energy, silent and invisible, humming beneath your feet. Right now, if this technology existed, where is it now? Good question. Let us talk about the mud flood. Across the world, from Europe to the Americas to Central Asia, there is a repeating anomaly in 19th century architecture. The ground floors are buried, not from gradual accumulation over centuries, but buried quickly, uniformly, as if a wave of mud swept across the entire planet simultaneously and deposited a meter or 2 of sediment everywhere, all at once. In Edinburgh, Scotland, the old city is built on top of another city. You can walk through Mary King's Close, a preserved underground street where buildings stand full height beneath the current street level, sealed and forgotten. In cities across the American Midwest, buildings from the early 1800s have basement windows that were clearly ground floor windows when constructed, ornate facades that make no architectural sense unless they were once visible, now half buried. In Astana, Kazakhstan, construction workers in the 1990s kept digging up foundations of massive structures that do not match any known civilization in the region's history. Foundations of buildings with corridors wide enough to drive vehicles through, with underground chambers aligned precisely to magnetic north. In Samarkand, in Bokhara, in the ancient cities of the Silk Road, right through the heart of old Tartaria, there are ruins of towers, tall, tapering, always positioned on elevated ground. The locals call them fire towers. Historians call them minarets or observation posts. But their dimensions, their precise taper ratios, their placement relative to each other, their orientation to water sources, matched Tesla's specifications for resonant energy transmission almost exactly. They were not watching for fire. They were transmitting. And here is one more location I need you to research yourself. Coral Castle in Homestead, Florida. A man named Edward Leedskalnin, a tiny 100-pound Latvian immigrant, single-handedly quarried, transporting, and assembled over 1,100 tons of coral rock into a magnificent castle. He worked alone. At night, he refused to let anyone watch him work. When asked how he moved stones weighing 30 tons with no machinery, he said only this: "I understand the secrets of the pyramids." He carried a small book of handwritten notes everywhere he went, notes about magnetism, about Earth's magnetic currents, about what he called the power they have hidden from you. When he died, the book disappeared. Was Leedskalnin the last man alive who understood Tartarian technology? Now we have to ask the hardest question of all. Why would anyone erase this? Think about what free wireless energy means. No power bills, no energy companies, no control over who has light, heat, transportation, communication, no leverage, no chokehold on civilization. You cannot build an empire, a financial empire, an industrial empire, on top of free energy. So it had to go. The timeline is damning. The Great Chicago Fire destroys one of the largest concentrations of pre-existing Tartarian architecture in North America. The official story: a cow kicked over a lantern. An entire city's worth of stone buildings burned. Except stone does not burn, and yet the interiors were destroyed. The facades in many cases were left standing, like shells, like a civilization had been hollowed out. 1889 through 1904, a wave of World's Fairs across the United States and Europe, all featuring enormous, spectacular neoclassical buildings, all supposedly constructed in months, all demolished immediately after. Chicago, Buffalo, St. Louis, San Francisco. Built in months, demolished in months. Why build something so magnificent just to tear it down? Unless you did not build it. Unless you found it, used it for a fair, and then demolished it to erase the evidence. 1900 through 1910, Tesla's funding is cut. His lab is burned in a suspicious fire in 1895. Wardenclyffe Tower is seized and demolished in 1917. His papers are confiscated by the United States government upon his death in 1943, classified under the Office of Alien Property. The Office of Alien Property. That is the official government body that took Tesla's work. And in the same decade that Tesla is being shut down, a new energy paradigm is being locked into place. Centralized power stations, copper wire grids, metered electricity, Rockefeller oil, Morgan finance. The free energy grid goes dark. The world goes on the meter. And we have been paying ever since. I want to give you 5 things you can go verify yourself, right now, tonight. Number 1, search for the 1893 Chicago World's Fair construction timeline. Then ask yourself how you build 200 buildings, each the size of a city block, each with marble facades and electrical lighting in 24 months. In the 1890s, with no modern equipment, the math does not work, it never worked, and no historian has ever satisfactorily explained it. Number 2, look up Telluric current maps. These are real, documented by mainstream geophysics. Natural electrical currents flowing through the ground following underground water. Then overlay those maps with the locations of major pre-1900 grand architecture, cathedral cities in Europe, temple complexes in Asia, the grand civic buildings of the American Midwest. The correlation is not random. These buildings sit directly on the strongest telluric current lines on Earth. Number 3, research the piezoelectric effect in stone. Granite, used in virtually every Tartarian era building, is piezoelectric. Apply mechanical pressure and it generates electricity. Apply electricity and it vibrates. A granite building on a seismically active site is literally generating electricity from the Earth's movement, continuously, for free. Number 4, look up the patents of Nathan Stubblefield, an American inventor who demonstrated wireless telephone transmission through the ground, through the Earth itself in 1902, a year before Marconi's famous wireless radio transmission. Stubblefield was demonstrating Earth conduction communication. His patents were bought, he was discredited, he died in poverty in 1928. Sound familiar? Number 5, go to Google Earth and look at the orientation of the major pre-1900 buildings in any major city. Then look at the nearest body of water. Then look at the nearest geological fault line. Every single one aligns. This was not aesthetics. This was engineering. Here is what I want you to sit with for a moment. We are living in the 21st century. We have satellites circling the Earth. We have quantum computers. We have artificial intelligence that can write poetry and diagnose cancer. And yet 770 million people on this planet have no access to electricity. Not because we do not have enough energy. The Earth is swimming in energy. Solar, geothermal, telluric, magnetic. The planet is a giant battery and we have known how to tap it for apparently thousands of years. We do not have an energy shortage. We have an access problem, deliberately engineered. Researchers like Eric Dollard, who rebuilt working Tesla coil systems in the 1980s and demonstrated longitudinal wave transmission, have been systematically defunded, harassed, and driven out of their labs. His work still classified as fringe. A man named T. Henry Moray built a device in the 1920s that pulled 50 kilowatts of power from, as far as anyone could tell, nothing. No fuel source, no connection to any grid. Skeptics who opened the device found components they had never seen before and could not identify. The device was shot by a gunman during a demonstration. Moray was threatened multiple times. The device was never replicated. Because every time someone gets close to replicating what the Tartarians knew, the funding disappears. The lab catches fire. The researcher has a convenient breakdown. The pattern is not paranoia. The pattern is policy. Here is what I believe. The Tartarians built a civilization so advanced, so humane, so free that it had to be erased, not just physically, not just historically, but erased from our imagination, from our sense of what is possible. Because the most dangerous thing in the world, to the people who control your energy, your money, and your information, is the idea that it does not have to be this way. That it never had to be this way. That for thousands of years, before the reset, before the mud flood, before the fires and the world's fairs and the demolished towers, people lived in cities powered by the earth itself, warm in winter, lit at night, connected across continents, for free. The buildings are still there. Half buried, repurposed, renamed, turned into courthouses and churches and city halls. But the spires still point at the sky. The copper still conducts. The stone still hums. And somewhere in a classified archive, in a collection of seized patents, in a notebook that disappeared when an old Latvian man died alone in Florida, the instructions still exist. They just do not want you to have them. Pause. If this video made you think, if something in you recognized what I was saying, share it. Because that recognition, that feeling that you have heard this somewhere before, that something is being confirmed rather than introduced, that is not conspiracy theory. That is memory. See you in the next one.